The next step of this assignment is going through and filling in the notes on value and shading worksheet that you should have in your art kit. If you don't, there is a link to it on Schoology. You should easily be able to download and print it out. The first thing I'd like to go over is a little bit of a review from the PowerPoint. So there is flat, which is just a plain circle, just like you would draw it, just a plain old circle. Next one is volumetric. You can see it has a highlight, a light source right here. So the light source is coming from this way, hitting it right here, and it's super dark all the way where the light is not hitting it. And then with spatial, same thing, the light source is coming from the top right. Everything gets darker down to the end, but there is a shadow, because say this is on a table right here, got a nice little table, it's gonna have a shadow to it. So the first thing is going from the definition of value, which we went over in the PowerPoint, but value is the use of light and dark, shade and highlight in an artwork. So there are many forms of value, which we went over. There's just plain old value, a gradation scale. There's hatching, cross-hatching, and stippling. But to start, we're going to just start with value. So always, number 1, your light is going to be your whitest white, and 5 is going to be your darkest dark. And just for demonstration purposes, I'm not going to fill in the entire rectangles. I'm only going to do about half, but for you guys, you should fill in the entire thing. So one thing I do is I always just do a very light layer across all of them, just to know the lightest that I can go. And a good way to get into habit of using a lighter hand to get lighter shades is to hold your pencil farther back, so it's more in the wrist movement. But then as you want to get darker, you're going to want to hold your pencil closer. So here we have shade number 2. I'll bring it a little closer. You can see right now they all look the same. There's number 1, which is the lightest light, which is a pure white. And then we have number 2. And then one thing I do that I have learned is that once you have your standard lightest shade, then you go over the rest of the shades again. So I always just go over them lightly again. So then we can see there is 1, 2, and if I were to cover this, we've got 1, 2, and 3. And then I'm going to bring my hand up a little bit. I'm going to go over the next 2 shades. So then I will cover this. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then for 5, I'm going to bring my hand even closer and make it as dark as I possibly can. And right now I am using graphite. I am using a HB, if you can see that, maybe not. That is just a generic pencil. It's not super hard, it's not super soft. It is a basic, if you were to use a plain old Ticonderoga pencil, you'd probably use an HB. So here is the value shades from light to dark. The next, hatching. Remember, you always want to keep the first box plain white. because that is your starting shade. So next, you're going to want to use parallel lines to show value, and I'm going to use diagonal lines. So here, you can see they're very far apart. I'll bring it a little closer so you can see. This would be my shade number 2, not quite plain white, not quite medium. The next step is going a little closer together. And if you wanted to be super precise, you could use a ruler, but for all intents and purposes, I'm just sketching this out freehand. So we can see they get a little closer together. It's a little darker. The next one, the second to last darkest shade, you're gonna wanna get a little closer. And I am being a little messy right now, but just to show it, you can see I filled that one in a little bit more than the one before it. And then the darkest one, you're gonna want the lines to be super close. So we can see, can probably even add a couple more lines to this one. There. That is the main thing with hatching, is that the farther the lines are apart, that means how light or dark they are. So we can see, even though they're two different styles of drawing, they give off the same message, same idea. It's the lightest all the way to darkest. It is similar with cross-hatching. Remember, we want to leave this first spot fully white. So then with cross-hatching, I tend to do very few lines. And the difference between hatching and cross-hatching is they go in both directions. So here is my first cross-hatching spot. The next one, I will make them a little closer. You can see again, I'll bring it closer. We're getting white, light, medium. Then we're gonna get darker for the next two. Oh, I will just quickly do that. So with these lines, you can see, even though there's not the traditional value like this one, you can see that it's getting darker. So then the darkest one, you would just make a lot of lines going in all different directions, like so. So you can see there's the white, light, medium, medium dark, all the way dark. So then for stippling, I would like to grab a Sharpie. You guys should be doing all of this in pencil, but just so you can see it okay, I am going to use a Sharpie. So again, remember, leave the lightest one all the way white, and then so there, if you can see it, looks like a little domino, not many lines or dots. So then I will add a few more. Bring it up again. As you can see, there's a bit more dots there. then I will add even more. See, it's getting even darker. And then the darkest one. Just because I'm working fast, your guys's should be neater, more thought out, spent more time on it. But just as a very quick example, here's a stippling value scale.